York Post op-ed writer Miranda Devine with this. President Biden has tasked the FBI to chase down conservatives. A quote from that reads, "It is not unreasonable to ask if the organization has taken its eye off the infiltration into the country of a terrorist like Akram. When the feds are busy rounding up MAGA grandmothers and Capitol paraders, are they paying attention to the potential terrorist magnet provided by the porous southern border?" And we also know that the DOJ is keeping tabs on parents protesting at school board meetings. Jason Rantz, Seattle radio talk show host now, with his fresh take on it. Jason.
I am not shocked by any of this. We have seen over and over and over again some more in this country and really around the globe that anti-Semitic terrorist attacks and anti-Semitic crimes don't get the coverage that I think it deserves. I don't know how you can be any more clear that when you have someone who's fighting on behalf of the release of an anti-Semite going into a synagogue, holding them hostage, I don't understand how anyone could say this might not have any connection directly to the Jewish faith. That is absurd on its face. And let's be clear, if this guy were white, it would be a white nationalist attack, regardless of any of the facts. We would have this month-long conversation in this country about the scourge of white supremacy and how it's the biggest terrorist threat that we face. But as the administration is making that up and pretending that white supremacy is the biggest threat in this country, we have things like this. And I think Miranda Devine is right to ask the question as to whether or not they've dropped the ball, although I suspect we all know the answer. Just look at the southern border. We stopped pretending to care about who comes into this country a long time ago.
You know, I saw something from Rachel Campos-Duffy this morning that was really nuanced on this topic, and I'll be quick with it. She said it's not so much where the Democrats are now on the border that is shocking to her. It's the fact that they've migrated to get there. They used to be on a different page and wouldn't have wanted to see such a porous situation. Remember, they called Obama the deporter-in-chief, but they've migrated from there. I thought that was interesting take from her. And from you, Jason. We'll move to this. A crime on a subway so heartless it is rocking New York City, which, Jason, we know has seen so much violence in recent months. A woman was pushed onto the tracks at Times Square, and police say a homeless man with a long rap sheet shoved her to her death. Now, the city's new mayor, Eric Adams, is getting a lot of heat for suggesting there's nothing to worry about inside the subway. Here's a quote from him. "Cases like this aggravate the perception of fear. New Yorkers are safe on the subway system. What we must do is remove the perception of fear." The New York Post cover sums up how riders really feel today. The fear is real. Jason.
Yeah, again, it's absolutely ludicrous. First of all, let's say that the perception was not based in reality. Well, that's still a problem that you have to face. You still have to tackle that issue because perception is really all that matters. But in this case, the perception is the reality. When you're having these kinds of high-profile crimes happening all the time, and it's not just happening on subways in New York City, then you very clearly have a problem. And this is the guy who was elected mayor because he promised to take crime seriously, give police officers the ability to actually go after the criminals. And there used to be a time where crimes like this actually mattered, where crimes like this would get a lot of coverage outside of Fox News. But now the reason why they tend not to, and they're downplayed or frankly just ignored, is because they don't like the root causes of this violence, which is a homelessness crisis in this case that has gone unaddressed. It's out of control. We're told over and over and over again, there's no place for these folks to go, so they just leave them out on the streets to suffer, and then ultimately, in a case like this, kill someone. It is, sadly, we're at peak absurdity here.
Yeah, you know, you really put a fine point on this, and I took a note here. Eric Adams was hired as mayor because he'd take it from a perspective of a former police officer, which he is, from New York City for 22 years. And any cop on the street can tell you right now that crime is out of control, particularly in that violent category. I want to get to this because this also is aggravating the situation. Manhattan's liberal DA, Alvin Bragg, which the country's learning his name now, defended his highly criticized memo, which called for shorter jail times and reduced charges for crimes including violent felonies. And he vowed to continue to push his pro-criminal policies, even in the face of all the criticism. Watch.
Maybe I had to come out of place, and maybe I didn't use the exact right words, But the urgency of now said, start this conversation. So we started it. And with your help, we're going to continue it. We're going to continue this message and to explain it and build it. Conversation by conversation, brick by brick.
What conversation does the DA from Manhattan think that we've started when the reality is so much crime?
Yeah, here's a conversation that he should be having, explaining to us how quickly he's going to dismantle his own systems of oppression, oppressing the people of New York City and Manhattan who are now dealing with the aftermath of policies that aren't even new. I know a lot of folks, Bragg included, but a lot of folks across the country who are in these positions, they say, well, we're going to try something new. And they're going to lean into lighter sentences. In lieu of prison time, we're going to give you restorative justice programs. We've had this conversation many times. But none of that is new. It's been tried over and over and over again for the last several years. And I think the data speaks for itself. We know exactly the direction that we're continuously heading in until we have the conversation about getting rid of these policies. Unfortunately, that's one conversation he doesn't want to actually have.
I don't think he's going to jump to that one. And look, you and I have talked about the migration of these types of policies. And so now I want to go to Los Angeles. By the way, you said the nexus of all of this is a man, George Soros, and his cash through his organization, which is interesting, because here's another one. LA's far left district attorney is getting scolded for coddling dangerous criminals. 26-year-old Hannah Tubbs pleaded guilty to sexually assaulting a 10-year-old girl about 8 years ago, when Tubbs was 2 weeks shy of turning 18. Now Tubbs, who is transgender, will at most be sentenced to serve time in a juvenile detention center or could just get probation. The LA County supervisor is not happy about that and says it's useless to catch criminals like Hannah Tubbs if we don't follow through and seek justice for victims, such as the 10-year-old girl she sexually assaulted. She bears the burden of a lifetime of trauma, that child she's talking about. She will be offered therapeutic interventions under the auspices of restorative justice and possibly granted only probation or parole. Where is the justice for her young victim and her family? Jason.
The Democratic Party right now believes that the criminals are the actual victims. And they've held that position over and over and over again for several years. This poor girl, this 10-year-old, had to suffer through that and now has to suffer through the knowledge that the criminal, the degenerate, is going to basically be let go because we're told that, well, you know, at that age, her brain isn't fully formed as a criminal, so let's give her a pass. I'm sorry, no, we can't do that anymore.
Well, you know, just one last word from you, because I'm curious. This is not about transgender. This is not about any of those categories that, you know, we look at in terms of just demographics of people. This has to do with crime.
Oh, absolutely. And let's be clear, it does have to do with transgender in one sense. If this were someone that society viewed purely as a biological male doing this exact same thing at 17 years old, that person would be spending a lot of time behind bars, rightfully so.
Jason Rantz, good to have you in focus today. Thank you.